Hey there. So, this is a quick follow-up to the dynamic bones tutorial. Specifically, this is about dynamic bone collisions. So first things first, here we have an object with a collider, and you can see that this is a green collider. We bring it close to the dynamic bones. Well, nothing happens. This is because static colliders exist for dynamic bones currently, but they're specifically dynamic bone sphere colliders. And they have to be statically assigned to this list here. So if we try to make this entry here and assign this collider into the list here, it wouldn't work because there's a regular collider over here, a sphere collider. What we need is an attached component, physics, dynamic bone sphere collider. Now with the sphere collider, we'll actually grab the radius and copy the distance over here. So now that we have that like this, and if we put it here so it's inside of there, grab the sphere collider, assign it to here, and now you'll see this actually starts colliding. Now, the important bit here is that you have to be careful with these colliders because you have to take into consideration the size of your bones as well as the size of the collider. Now, if both are basically sized perfectly to your mesh, you can basically align them nicely. However, if one is too small, it might not work correctly. So always keep in mind both the radius on the dynamic bone sphere collider and on your actual bones, which is here the base bone radius. Now, another thing with these is that what sometimes can happen is that they will very, very quickly move back and forth if you have a hand coming close to smaller colliders. Now, this is a small example of this where you can see constant motion and you can also see why it's happening. Every single time my hand collider assigns, it pushes the spheres away, which pushes them outside the radius of my hand, which makes those spheres get unassigned. But then, because of this, the spheres no longer exist, so it moves the spheres back into place, and then it reassigns them. And that's a core issue that currently exists with dynamic bone collision. Now, there is a small workaround that I have come up with myself currently that I'd assume is probably at some point going to no longer be required, but currently is a way that you can increase the radius of the collisions, which is you simply make a child like this, like I just made here. Oop, let me reset that. There we go. Then you simply go and add another slot to the bones here. We simply put in that slot here. Let's open that up and fill out the positions in the, not in the position drive, in the original position. Then grab, and then simply like set up from a slot, which will assign this little collider here. So now currently this is collidable, but what we're going to actually be doing is we'll be disabling the collidable on that bone, and we'll upscale this bone to a size of something like 5. Now, one important thing is we also need to disable the terminal bone, because the terminal bone is always going to be the same scale as the final bone. So we'll actually have to go and no longer simulate terminal bone. So now we have this deep blue bone here. And the reason why this one is great is because, as you can see, it's not interacting with our collider. However, if I go into here, you can see that the dynamic colliders are already assigned, despite this here not being collidable. So if I touch these bones, when I now interact with them, I can actually interact with them perfectly at all times. Now, what I say to keep in mind is don't make this little fake collider too big, because if you do, it's going to basically always assign these colliders to people's hands, to their bodies, to their heads, depending on what you have enabled on here. So do keep that in mind. And if you do not need dynamic collisions with hands and stuff like that, you can in fact entirely disable dynamic player collisions, and it will still work with the static ones. However, for static colliders, you actually don't need this workaround because they're always assigned. So there's no issue of them unassigning. But yeah, I do hope that this helps you with setting up colliders for dynamic bones, and I hope you have a nice day. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. Bye-bye.